Hello and welcome to this edition of the RMI podcast series, brought to you by Gondolier Importers of John Osway Tools, the Automotive Remanufacturers Association, Motor Industry Workshop Association and the Tyre and Equipment Parts Association, all proud associations of the RMI. I have with me today Karel Venter, the National Sales Director of Gondolier South Africa, to speak about tools of the John Osway brand. Welcome, Karel.
Edley, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Karel, we've reflected on what's happened over the last few months. Everything very unexpected, and business is no longer normal, and people are referring to business abnormal. And part and parcel of one of your offerings and product terms is let's get 100% from 30%. It's quite a bold statement to make, and I think if we can just try and understand how that translates for us.
Absolutely, Edley. I think I got your attention there. It is a bold statement, and it's exactly what it is intended to be, for people to set up a notice and shake the tree, if you like.
Yeah, I think obviously it means and entails that there'll be change in any organisation that follows this process. And change is always something that people try and resist as much as possible, but given what's happened over the last few months, there's no doubt about it. Business has changed, and business will change further as we carry on. Let's just have a look at what your 100 from 30 is all about.
Edley, we can see this as a crisis, or we can see it as a massive opportunity. It's a reset. That's exactly what it is. This is giving us as businesses the opportunity to reassess where we're at and what we can bring into our businesses and change, because the hard fact is that if we continue like we used to do before, we will not get to the end result. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I suppose we're really talking about less is more, and how to get productivity and efficiencies of any workshop or environment up, because they directly affect profitability, and right now profitability is the key cornerstone of business as we know it. But at the same time, we can't sacrifice customer experience in how this is translated. So, it's going to be very interesting to understand your offering and your concept in this project.
Absolutely, Edley. I think now more than ever, there's a great need to do things differently. And I would like to use an analogy that I think all of us can understand. We're all mostly petrol heads listening to this, but let's take the analogy of the humble internal combustion engine. 25 years ago, if you wanted any significant horsepower, you had to have a lot of cylinders and a lot of capacity, and it's definitely not unlikely for in that time for a big V12 huge capacity engine to probably produce similar numbers to a highly tuned forced induced 2-litre engine of today. And I think if we look at that analogy, that forms a nice basis of our talk.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I suppose if one goes back to the American terminology, it was always a case of there's no substitute for cubic inches, and bigger is better. Whereas if we go back into where some of the modern manufacturers have got 1000cc motors, 3 cylinders, developing over 260 kilowatt, that's probably more than many of those old V8s ever produced, unless they were really changed. And we come back to change and the less is more concept, and how we can translate our businesses or your offer into our businesses with a benefit to our members in mind.
Absolutely. So, as I said before, now more than ever, we need to bring about these changes in our business. And we've now looked at that analogy. I think we can all understand that we need to make do with less. At the moment, the new normal is being forced upon us, from lockdown measures, etc. And a lot of businesses had to make do, whether you're a restaurant or a tire fitment center or a workshop for that matter. You had to make do with less and get to more. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. So let's go back to the analogy of the engine, guys. We need to now supercharge and turbocharge and electrify and all the measures that we can put in place to get our businesses to a different level, because this new normal will remain the new normal for the future. Even after we emerge and you can get 100% of your staff back, efficiency and productivity is going to be key, and that is how business is going to survive, and not only survive but thrive in this in these times.
Yeah, if one looks at productivity and efficiency, you certainly think of that in terms of profitability in the eyes of the business owner. But productivity and efficiency also in the eyes of your consumer translates directly to the consumer's experience of your business, whether they are delayed or time delays and lags in being able to get turnaround on their services and vehicle maintenance done. Yeah, it's something that's got to be really critically looked at by all concerned. So yeah, how do we go about this? What's the next step in the process?
Guys, maybe if I use a practical example of something that we've done of late, you can maybe see the similarities in this, let's call it a story, in your own business. We embarked on a program with a leading OEM less than a year ago, where we sat down with them, we consulted, and we asked some key questions. And I think that the first question was, how many cars are you guys servicing? And I must mention, this is a massive OEM. And we delved into the numbers, and they were servicing 1,000 vehicles per month.
1,000 a month?
Absolutely, 1,000 vehicles per month. Now, that sounds very impressive, as you can also think. But the bottom line is that the next question is, I think, what was important. I asked a very pertinent question at the time, and I said, do you guys have any backlogs? Because I think a lot of our businesses measure success on whether the workshop is full, and also numbers. If I looked at that 1,000 cars per month, surely we must be doing very well. But I asked the question, do you have any backlogs? And the answer was 2 to 3 weeks. And as you know, and again, going back to, it doesn't matter what business it is, and the customer experience, as you rightly mentioned, if you have a backlog of 2 to 3 weeks on a car being serviced, you're just going to go to the next guy, aren't you? We spoiled for choice. There's many choices, and that is not only business that you are losing in that specific instance, but it is possibly business that you will lose for the foreseeable future, because you've now gone to the alternative because you couldn't be helped with the first option, and you just stick to the alternative.
The consumers most definitely these days can vote with their feet, and you're either getting the footprint into your store or you're not. The customer experience determines the level of footprint that you get in it, the customer base that you keep.
Absolutely. In most cases, those customers will be lost forever. So what happened in this specific case? This customer didn't leave it at that. He didn't just assume that he was busy to the point of overcapacity. He could have easily just said, okay, this is where we're at. He analyzed things. They looked at it. They said, all right, we have 39 technicians. We have 22 working days if you count in the half-day Saturdays, and we're servicing 1,000 vehicles per month. Now, if you do those maths, you are getting to 1.16 cars per technician per day. And I'm looking at you, Edley. I can see you're quite shocked, but that is the unfortunate results that they found. If you break down this further into percentages, which even makes it more pertinent as an illustration, they got down to 17% of invoiced hours versus available hours.
Gosh, less than 20%.
17%. That's the honest truth. So if you look at every 100 hours, they were working and invoicing only for 17 hours, and to a large degree, that boiled down to the selection that the guys had of tooling that they could work with. Obviously, that wasn't the only factor. There was different factors. There was parts availability. There was just other inefficiencies in the workshop, but that was part of it. And what this person did, this national workshop manager that analyzed this whole scenario, what he did is, and he explained this to me, he stood in one of their offices. They've got these offices with big glass windows looking into the workshop, and all he did is he just observed. And what he saw in front of him shocked him to his core, because what he saw is he saw people that had so little in terms of the range of the tools or the selection that they needed, that they were begging and borrowing and walking around, having a chat to their friends, etc. You know how it goes in a workshop, and they were not actually just working. Because you can imagine, if you've got a vehicle in front of you, you've got your complete selection, every tool that you can think of, and you are basically just utilizing it and fixing what you can, it won't be a problem. But if you have to walk around and beg and borrow and ask, then efficiency goes out the window. So They embarked on a tool audit program, and they found that of the selection, on average, less than 30% is what these guys had in their toolboxes. So you can imagine there was a lot of inefficiencies just because they didn't have the right tools. And they were making plans, and they were, as I mentioned before, begging and borrowing. He then basically went on a program where they financed the guys. So they said, there's your selection. We finance it over 2 years, and you can pay it off. And every month after this, we will do a tool audit, and we will ensure that if something is missing, it gets deducted off your salary and it gets bought, and end of story. After a month, they went from 17% to 41%, which is a huge gain if you think about where they are. After 6 months, and obviously implementing all the measures, all the other inefficiencies that was also identified, they moved up to 83%. Now that is a huge number, and we're happy to report that this OEM can comfortably work at full capacity with less than 40% of its previous resources.
Gee, that's a crazy number, you know. If I go back to the less than 20% mark of invoiced hours, that means they could be invoicing 5 times as much as what they currently were. And obviously that's an impact on the customer and the customer experience. And I think it sounds like a very easy fix, and I don't think it is. And I also wonder if this fix and this analysis would have taken place without your intervention as Gondolier and Jonas Way in the workshop environment. But very often it just boils down to somebody who doesn't know and needs help being shown what they need to do in their own environment. You've got to be shown what's wrong before you fix it. The fact that in 1 month they doubled their production output, or more than doubled, taking it from the 17 to 41%, is a remarkable feat anyway. But yeah, it certainly requires a departure from the business normal. And I think at this stage in our lives, with the lockdown and the coronavirus and so on, we've all had to accept that business is no longer normal, and the new business is abnormal, if you will. How did this affect the staff, and what was their participation level in the business?
Absolutely, Edley. I think it's human nature that people don't enjoy change too much, and there was definitely some hesitation in the beginning. But I think as soon as the results started being clear to everyone, there was this massive buy-in. And if we consult with any of these staff members today, they can't imagine going back to the way things were, because they are efficient. It's basically like painting and having your canvas in front of you and absolutely every tool next to you, and you can then paint what you need to do. And modern technicians they're artists, and they take pride in what they do. And these guys are definitely finding it far more enjoyable what they're doing at the moment.
It certainly sounds like a considerable amount of change and a different way of looking at things, and I suppose, change being the only constant in our lives these days. Have you coined a name for your project?
Well, definitely. If we look at the name, I think the one thing that really pops up in this talk, Edley, is change. I think we mentioned that over and over. And yes, definitely, it is something that we will gladly implement with any business. And if I look at it, if you look at change as a name, the word delta springs to mind. In the Greek meaning of delta is change. So Project Delta, this is just made up right now. That springs to mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Project Delta is probably a very good name for it, given the fact that it is directly related to change, and we always recognize the pyramid shape of Delta, and in this instance it's going to be valuable, I think, in determining the project in the eyes of our member businesses, because it's something that has a name is something that can be related to. So I think Delta is a great name. Well done. And we look forward to seeing more of Project Delta going forward. Additionally, Carel, I think at this point in time, we need to thank you for the time you've offered and given up to be with us today. And we certainly see from what you're saying, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And one appreciates all these complexities that are in the work environment that we have to live with. Any help, any change, any change that is for the better has to be welcomed by anybody in business today, and one cannot be complacent about it, and one cannot be arrogant about it. There are different people out there doing different things that help us and change the way we do operate normally. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
It's a big pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Coral, just in closing, what can we expect from Gondolier in the near future? The other thing that has come across strongly in recent times is digitalization. Things like, we're doing this podcast, webinars, e-conferencing and so on. Is there anything planned in the near future with Gondolier?
Absolutely, Edley. I'm glad that you asked. We're busy with very, very exciting projects. There's a lot of app development. There's really a lot of things in behind the curtain that is busy happening. One of the main things that's really going to facilitate the workshop in implementing an effective tool program, and to effectively make sure that every technician has the right selection, is what we call the end user portal. There's a specific product selection that will be applicable to your business, and that will be put into a tailor-made app that is just for your business, and you can literally, just by clicking, standing in front of a guy's tool selection, just by clicking on what he needs, you can within seconds place an order with your local distributor, and that distributor will in turn place it with us. And we are aiming to take the pain out of that, because if you have a program that can be easily implemented, that is absolutely no headache, it can be done quickly, literally maybe 20 minutes once a month, and that will ensure that you've got everything in place for your technicians, and then leading to the results we've just discussed. So very, very important. That is a big part of it. Secondly, webinars, that is something that we're going to embark on, and definitely more of these podcasts that we're discussing right now.
Coral, just finally, how do we get in touch with you and your team to participate in Project Delta?
So as part of this podcast, we will just put all our details up. You're more than welcome to find myself or any member of our team. All our details will be there. Or alternatively, you can go to our website, www.gondolier.co.za, and guys, we would be more than thankful to come and assist and look at your specific business scenario.
Coral, that's great, thank you, and I think it's a wonderful offer. People should take you up on it and make the change, let's call it. And thanks for the time again, and we wish you all the best with Project Delta. Take care.
Thank you, Edley.